Hey guys, welcome to Behind Enemy Lines, the Antifa Project, Part 2. Before I get into the main part of what I want to cover in this video, I wanted to go over some material that many of you may not know, in terms of the organization as a whole, and their affiliations. I know from the comment sections in my videos and other people's videos, that many people think they have been beaten. They're back on their heels and are going to eventually disappear. While it's true, they have taken a beating. Not just on April 15th, when patriots ran them out of town. They've taken a beating everywhere they have dared show up since then. From what I understand, they are lying low and hoping that the patriot movement will run out of funding and motivation. In their eyes, all these rallies taking place are just making the right look ridiculous when no one shows up to combat them. Antifa believe that absent conflict, funding from social media efforts will dry up, eliminating the right's ability to bring together the troops to fight against them. In a way, they are correct. Most groups have experienced a distinct drop in donations ever since Antifa stopped showing up to fight. This has probably what has fueled rumors of fake events created to give the appearance of a looming battle. When people think there's going to be a fight, they show up. They donate money. Right-wing groups have done a great job capitalizing on the Berkeley battles in order to raise money. After all, it's not cheap flying people back and forth across the country to different events. Patriot groups use that money and cultist personalities to bring manpower from all over the United States to push back against the left. People eat up videos of conflict on Twitter, Periscope, and YouTube. Many think the right has already beaten the radical left. After nearly 3.5 months of sparse Antifa presence at events, many think they have been thoroughly beaten. I'm not one of those who think that. Antifa has merely changed their strategy. Look for them to do that again. I've no doubt that when the time seems right to them, they'll start showing up again and pushing back. I don't believe that for a second, and here's part of the reason why. If they were just a lot of indoctrinated college kids with too much time and too little discipline, you might be correct. However, Antifa are far more than that. They are your basic foot soldier shock troops, cannon fodder, if you will. What makes Antifa and other anarchist groups so dangerous, and what has given them their staying power, is the organizations behind them. Because the recent, heavily televised battles with Antifa have been in Berkeley, they are the groups most Americans are familiar with. Most folks have developed some opinions about the groups based on short YouTube videos and sound bites on mainstream media, which is not entirely accurate. While groups in Portland, Oregon and Seattle, Washington are more numerous and seemingly more militant, they're not representative of them as a whole. The more militant of the Antifa, the different anarchist groups are already living the outlaw lifestyle. Some are what you might call preppers and sovereign citizens. We've all seen the videos of deranged sovereigns whining about police having no authority over them. Not all are that crazy. There are groups in and around the DC area that literally have weapon caches buried in strategic locations just waiting for the right time to rise up and do some serious fighting. So what's their endgame here? I and others more knowledgeable of the situation believe that there are a number of groups like Muslim Brotherhood who are just waiting for America to fall so they can swoop in and divide up the spoils. Anita are the agitators. Their job is to create conflict and to keep it up. They aim to divide us and weaken us until the time is right for a real globalist war against free America. So who are these groups, and how are they connected to Antifa? Why won't they just go away? Antifa have the ability to draw from groups like Black Lives Matter, the different Occupy movements, La Raza, and the New Black Panthers. They get additional manpower from Muslim Brotherhood, Revolutionary Communist Party, World Workers' Party and others. They receive monetary support from the International Monetary Fund, World Bank, Soros Foundation, the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation, and the Ford Foundation. They receive additional guidance, funds and direction from Saudi Arabia, Turkey, and China, the United Nations, European Union, NATO, and the Trans-Pacific Partnership. Those groups in turn are guided by Council on Foreign Relations, Trilateral Commission, and the Bilderberg Group. So now I'd like to speak to my own personal experiences while filming with Berkeley Antifa, Rose City Antifa, and other groups. A little background in case you missed part 1 of the series. I got my start in this form of independent journalism after hearing of Antifa's plans to shut down the Milo's speech at UC Berkeley February 1, 2017. Back then Antifa were not so security conscious, so I was easily able to find out when and where they were going to gather that night, so I showed up early. I confess, I was not prepared for what I was to film that night. I'll never forget the acrid smell of smoke in the air, the flashbang from firecrackers being launched at campus police on the second-floor balcony of the Sproul Plaza Student Union building. I watched through the haze, standing next to more experienced photographers, taking my cues from them. So when one lowered his camera and yelled, "Fucking run," I did. Hell, I didn't know any better. So what spurred my very brief flight? Berkeley police finally had enough of having fireworks launched at their heads and decided to fire back with rubber bullets. I remember watching as a dozen cops stepped up, leaned over the balcony rails and pointed their rifles at us. Fucking run! Pop, pop, pop went the guns as rubber bullets peppered the rioters and the bystanders caught up in the whole mess. I was hooked. From there I filmed the March 4th, March for Trump free speech rally, and the subsequent pushback free speech rally on April 15th. Both of these, patriots were set upon by armed Antifa who outnumbered us 15-1 on both events. But we all know what happened there. On April 15th, heavily outnumbered, unarmed patriots ran Antifa out of their own territory. So what did I learn from that whole experience? On one side you have radical left-wing terrorists, and on the other a motley collection of far-right white supremacists. There is no in-between. If you believe mainstream media at least. Soon after Ann Coulter announced she would be speaking at UC Berkeley on April 27th. We all know she backed out, in part due to the ridiculous requirements imposed by the school. As a result to that, patriots flew in Gavin MC Innes, Lauren Southern, Baked Alaska, Brittany Pettibone, Faith Goldy, and other notable speakers. We had a successful event without any violence whatsoever. Several things happened here. To begin with, Berkeley police bowed to public and political pressure and finally did their job. Aided by the Oath Keepers who worked with them, Antifa never showed in force. They sent scouts who obviously determined they were up against roughly 300 armored patriots in the mood to protect our right to speak and assemble. It should be noted that police evidently intercepted a group of Antifa who had a number of improvised explosive devices hidden in their vehicle. That was repeated in Portland, where Antifa were actually caught with sticks of dynamite prepped and ready to throw into the gathered patriots in the park on June 4th. Literally hundreds of patriots could have been killed in one fell swoop. So what does that tell us? Stinging from recent losses in Berkeley, Antifa were pissed off and looking for revenge in a big way. They just failed to pull it off. In Portland I spent about 6 hours filming from the Antifa side, which primarily consisted of conflicts with the police. I learned a few things. Most notable was the attitude of Antifa and how they viewed our side. Literally, to a man, they believed that if they were to walk into Chapman Square where patriots were assembled for their event, they would be murdered in broad daylight. Now, while some of that can be attributed to the recent knife attack by Jeremy Christian, who murdered of 2 men who came to defend a teenager he was harassing on public transport. The man was called a Trump supporter by mainstream media, who also claimed he was part of Joey Gibson's group despite video evidence of him being ejected from the group's events. This whole event was like a small fire being dumped on by 1 million gallons of liquid propane courtesy of mainstream media. Then I thought, maybe it's just the Antifa who are afraid they'll be attacked, despite patriots extending the olive branch and wanting to open a peaceful dialogue. So I went around asking people not involved in the war between the right and the left. I was surprised that this fear was shared by common citizens as well. So while many on the right believe that the left, specifically radical left, believe that everyone wants to commit violence on Trump supporters, that simply is not true. I do see the right as having some responsibility in this. If we truly want to open a dialogue with the left, as some say, including Joey Gibson of Patriot Prayer, then perhaps we should tone down our language a bit. I know I have been guilty of this as well and have taken to social media vilifying Antifa and the left. And when the right takes a page out of the left's playbook, doxing, that doesn't help in getting the left to the table to talk. Believe me, I know better than most out there about being doxed, harassed, threatened, followed, videoed, had posters of my face spread around town with unkind words written on them. So when we do that to the left, well, you get my point. Then there was Los Angeles. On July 2nd I traveled to LA to film the Impeach Trump march put on by Refuse Fascism and supported by the Revolutionary Communist Party. This was heavily advertised for months in advance, along with the threat of shutting down cities and forcing Trump to put martial law in effect. This would strengthen their argument that he is unfit for office and has lost control of the public. Of course, when you have a permit to march and stay within the parameters of said permit, you can hardly claim you're ungovernable and anything more than a mild noisy nuisance. By my estimates, there were probably a good 5,000 marchers and about 40 counter-protesters. The only thing of note that happened that day was the near clash between the quote, real Trump supporters end quote, and the traitor-based Spartan, or based Trojan, depending on who you talk to. At his side was Nick Abbott, his only friend left in the world. But this video is about Antifa, so I won't get into any of that mess here. On July 15th, I went to the San Francisco, California Impeach Trump march, which was considerably smaller. I have a video up already about that, but I would like to add a few details here. First off, I was recognized right away by a Revolutionary Communist Party organizer who glared at me in stony silence when he recognized me and refused to answer my questions on whether his cohort son Sarah Taylor, their leader, would be present. While the apparent Antifa in charge got on his radio to relay information about me to his comrades off-site, they busily took pictures and passed messages amongst themselves. For most of the day there were myself, two other independent journalist guys I knew who are Trump supporters, and one proud boy who is a friend of mine. Eventually he had to leave, and it was 3 against about 700. About 2 hours into the march, myself and Mr. Barrera, channel information in the description, got separated from the other journalist. And things began to happen. First it was the Revcom guy who would put his electronic bullhorn to my ear and blast his siren. Then an Antifa came up behind Carlos and drew his finger across his throat, simulating slashing his throat. For a few minutes it was chaos. Amazingly, no one threw a punch or worse, despite 2 of the Antifa carrying big sticks minus flagpoles. But when the dust settled, I managed to speak to a young Antifa guy who was one of the main guys who objected to us filming them. We got to talking. It seems there is a real lack of understanding of who each side is. He thought we were all violent racists bent upon murdering him and his comrades. I of course have been more of the impression that he and his brothers are all bent on destruction of property and attacking Trump supporters whenever the odds heavily favor them. Turns out this guy was against any political violence. At one point I invited him to come on my channel for an interview, which he accepted. He asked to see my channel. So while he held my cameras, I typed my channel info into his cell phone with the disclaimer, "You're really not going to like what you see." Either he really hated what he saw, or his leaders put a stop to his communicating with me because he has not contacted me even though he has my email. So guys, While I am fascinated with Antifa and love to learn about them, my filming unnoticed is all but impossible now. It was a good run. If Antifa gets active again, I'll be right there and have more material for you. Finally, I would love to know what you guys want videos on. What interests you? I will be covering the Ben Shapiro speech in the middle of September at UC Berkeley. Already Antifa are talking about shutting that down like they did with Milo and Ann Coulter. There is a Unite the Right event in San Francisco on August 26th that I will cover, as well as the Butt the Fuck Out Challenge at MLK Park on Sunday, August 27th in Berkeley. That event is, as far as I know, an under-the-radar challenge to any Antifa with balls enough to show up. I'll be filming that event as well. I have the Baked Alaska interview coming at the end of August, so keep checking back for that one. But I really want to know what you guys want to see. More interviews? I did the Roaming Millennial interview a month or so ago. Do you want to see other news that is not political? Anti-feminist videos? I could do some videos having to do with the culture war that is going on right now in our schools. So, in the comments below, tell me what you would like to see. I'll include a link to the Heroes and Villains playing card deck as well. They're a regular set of playing cards with pictures I took from the battles of Berkeley. If you appreciate what I am trying to do here and would like to help out, I have a Patreon and PayPal too. Your donations enable me to take off work and go to these events. Please don't forget to like, comment, subscribe, and share.